On Friday, we had a presidential forum at Regent University. Were you there?
I was there, and I loved every second of it.
It was tremendous.
Such a great interview. You know, Jeb Bush comes across so different in person when you hear him than he does sometimes on TV.
Well, I had a little chance to stir him up, but it was, we had a lot of fun. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that this is part of the ongoing series of Regent University, but I thought that we would share with you, because so many people didn't have a chance to see it, and we want you to do that. Now, this man was a successful governor of Florida, and he's running for the Republican nomination for president. And on Friday, as we pointed out, we had a forum at Regent University, and he headlined that forum. And we talked about his plans for turning the country around, assuming that he was successful. And I think you'll find this very interesting.
Bush also addressed the recent shakeup of his campaign, which includes cuts to his staff, along with how to deal with Vladimir Putin, health care, and more. John Waggy has the story.
It is a joy to be here.
The former Florida governor finds himself struggling in the polls as he seeks to become the third Bush to win the White House. At Regent University's presidential forum, moderated by ACLJ founder Jay Sekulow, Bush shared how he came to a faith that changed his life.
I first wanted to talk a little bit about my faith journey, because I think now there's a debate about whether people of faith should actually act on their faith in the public square. Really? How do you put aside your faith on the important issues that truly matter? The questions of life, the questions of compassion, the things that motivate people to act on their heart to try to help people. I, for one, believe that people of faith should act on their faith, and they should be informed by their faith. My life journey started, thankfully, when I woke up in Midland, Texas, and I opened up my eyes, and there she was, Barbara Bush, talking about a blessing from God.
Raised Episcopalian, Bush said his faith deepened at a stressful time in his life 30 years ago.
I was living the tyranny of the present. Maybe people understand this. People driven to success. I was kind of overwhelmed. At one point, I just said, I got to pause. I got to get quiet. And I started reading the Bible. And I think it was like Romans. Got about to there, and I realized that Jesus was my Savior. And I accepted him in the late 1980s, and it has given me a comfort that I cannot describe to you really well, but I can promise you this, that it has given me a comfort and a serenity that has made my life journey a lot easier and a lot simpler.
In 1995, Bush became a Catholic, so his children would be raised in their mother's faith. He says Catholic teaching helps inform his view of government.
Every time we outsource responsibility over taking care of a neighbor, we allow government to get bigger. And today, government is huge. And the regulations on top of government, when you can't spend your way to prosperity, which is never going to happen, then you try to regulate your way to prosperity or tax your way to prosperity. That's what the progressive liberal agenda is all about, is taking power away from families and communities and shifting it as far removed as possible.
After his remarks, Bush sat down for a conversation with Regent Chancellor Pat Robertson, who started by asking what a President Jeb Bush would make his first priority.
You've just sworn the oath of office. You've got that little office off in the Capitol, and you're sitting down. What are the few, let's say the number one issue you'd take? If you could, with a stroke of the pen, do something, what would you do?
Well, I think in the first week you need to use the power, the executive authority you have, because working with Congress is going to take a little bit of time to kind of reestablish the dysfunctional relationship there needs to be fixed. It's going to take making sure that people, don't assume you have bad motives. Unfortunately, we're in an environment where the way you win is push people down and make yourself look better. When we were growing up, you were spanked when you did that as a kid, right? I mean, now it's kind of blood sport, and so reestablishing that relationship with Congress is important. But I'd say using the executive authority to undo the unconstitutional things that this president has done would be one of the things, and there's a lot of places where that would happen. And then secondly, Just look at the world. We've seen an unraveling of the order of the world, because as we pull back, no one has filled the void other than Islamic terrorism and nation states like Iran, which we've enabled by our agreement, and Russia and China. And so I think we have to reestablish America's leadership in the world, and there's some things that I think would send a clear signal about that. And if I had to pick the one place to start, it would be Israel. It would be making sure that the world knows there is no gap between the United States and Israel again.
Okay. And what would you do with ISIS? I mean, they talk about boots on the ground. Would it take a force of American troops to get the job done?
Well, we have 3,500 troops in Iraq right now, but they're pulled back. They're not embedded with the Iraqi military. The Canadians are embedded with the Iraqi military. Maybe after this last election they may stop, but they're embedded, but we're not. And we need to be embedded with their military. We need to have forward controllers to know where our sorties go, that they're going to the proper place. We need much better diplomatic activity. We're allowing Russia and Iran to have more influence in Iraq than we do. I mean, this is not the right way for American leadership. So I think you need to have a strategy that arms the Kurds, that re-engages with the Sunni tribal forces, that is engaged with the military, and where there's a clear objective of pushing ISIS out of Iraq. Then the hard work begins as it relates to Syria.
Asked about Russian President Putin's strategy in Ukraine and the Middle East, Bush warned the Russian leader pays attention to deeds, not words.
Look, I'm a student of history just as you are, and I think real leadership is not about talking. It's not about grandiose language or trash talking. I mean, this president called Russia a regional power. Now, you're Vladimir Putin, and you see the vacillation of our leadership and negotiating with enemies, unilaterally conceding things and not acting on the talk that you give, and you say, this is prey for me. I'm all in. And he is a bully, and what he sees, he calculates the risk.
A highly decorated general and former head of the CIA was actually indicted and found guilty of at least misdemeanors because he gave a few documents to his mistress who was writing a biography. Hillary Clinton has given a whole lot more than that around, and who knows how many thousands of pages of confidential information have been leaked. Do you think she might get indicted, or is that too much to contemplate? You can't speculate.
I may take a pass on that one. But I would say this, to slough off this as it happened in the debate in Las Vegas, to say, well, no big deal. No big deal. The FBI is investigating it. The State Department's going to go through another 6 months of review of all this. They've had to hire people. This is the Clinton view of economic development, hiring 10 more people in the State Department to go through emails. That's what they consider, economic growth. I think we ought to shrink government and create economic growth inside the private sector. So this is not finished yet. And look, in a world where people don't believe what politicians say, in a world where government is probably at its lowest respect amongst the people that it's supposed to serve, these things make it worse. And we need to restore some level of integrity in government. The government shouldn't be our master, it's our servant. Yeah, and right now, it doesn't feel that way, does it? And so a little bit of transparency, a little bit of humility, a little bit of recognizing that these ideas, the top-down driven approach to things are going to solve our problems, and just recognize maybe there's a better way is, I think, appropriate right now, because we've lost our way in Washington.
You've brought out a new tax plan that's a very thorough tax plan. It may be the best out there. What is your concept of reforming the tax code?
It's to eliminate as many of the carve-outs, the credits, the deductions that pick winners and losers. Again, who cares what the intentions are? Yeah. I mean, I assume everybody's got good intentions when they come up with these ideas. It doesn't matter. In a free society, shifting power back to people means you don't pick winners and losers through the tax code or through the regulatory system. You create a free system where people can earn success, and the objective is to build capacity so they can do it. So a tax code that's simple, shifts power away from Washington, and creates, I think, an explosion of investment in our country.
Real quick, we do have this problem with entitlements. The Social Security Trust Fund will be bankrupt in a few years, as will the Medicare fund. What are you going to do with entitlements? There's some thought of making the eligibility age considerably older. What are you proposing, or are you?
When Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan got together and brought their teams together to save Social Security for a generation, they did it in a thoughtful way. In effect, what they did was they raised, for higher income people, they paid a little bit more. And for the retirement age, for every month of raising the retirement age, a year goes by for a month of raising the retirement age. And now, instead of 65, we're at 66 and moving towards 67. And I think we need to continue that, because people do age and still make a contribution. We're living healthier, and our demography kind of demands it. And secondly, I think we need to focus. There are other things that we can do to create solvency for Social Security that would preserve and protect it for people that already have it, and would reform it so it exists for people that don't. Because you're absolutely right. In the next 10 to 15 years, in the different trust funds of Social Security, there's going to be a 25 to 30% reduction in benefits because of its lack of solvency. And on Medicare, a similar kind of approach is necessary, where you're curbing these out-year costs. You're not cutting Medicare, but you're curbing the out-year costs by implementing health savings accounts, by allowing more competition so that seniors have more choices, where there's competition to drive prices down rather than prices up. Only in America, whenever the government's involved, choices mean more costs.
Yeah.
The rest of us in the free market actually find that choices actually drives costs down and quality goes up. And so applying those principles to our healthcare system would yield a good result.
I've got one last question. The media is full of it in the last day or two. You've cut about 45% of the spending in your campaign. A number of workers are going on reduced pay. You've let some people go. You've shifted out of Miami, et cetera, et cetera. Does this mean lean and mean for the future, or does this mean you're in trouble?
This means lean and mean, and it means that I have the ability to adapt.
Okay.
And the circumstances when we started the election were different. I have not met a person that thought Donald Trump would be the front-running candidate at this point. God bless him for his success in that regard. We'll see how long that lasts, but you have to adapt. Every dollar we can save in overhead is a dollar that goes on television, goes on radio, goes on media, goes on voter outreach.
Jay, it looks like our time.
Yeah, let me ask one last quick question from our friend Bishop Harry Jackson.
All right.
And he asked, because there's a lot of concern about what's happening in the inner city right now.
Yeah.
And he asked, what is your urban economic agenda? What would you do to help the inner city?
This is, look, we have 6 million more people in poverty. Our poverty is becoming intergenerational. It's sticky. And the despair that exists is heartbreaking. And any just society needs to be a right-to-rise society. So how would you do it? The three things that matter most than anything else are four. One is security. Communities have to be secure, and law enforcement should not be pulled back. Their job is hard enough as it is, and there should be, build trust again, but there should be security, because that's number one. Number two, and more important, is family.
Yes.
A husband and a wife, a man and a woman, loving their children with their heart and soul makes it, and particularly in poverty where the economics, are hard, really hard. It's a struggle for a single mom to bring up a child. It's a heroic effort. And many of the transfer payments only exist when a family is not an intact family. So family matters, and we need to change our policies as it relates to that. And I think dramatically improving the chance of low-income kids to be able to get a quality education, which means private choice, public choice, breaking down the monopoly, making sure teacher effectiveness is as good in the pockets of poverty as it is in the places of affluence. There should be no tolerance for the mediocrity or abject failure that exists in inner city schools.
Hey.
We should all believe that that is a huge value for our country.
Dr. Pat Robertson and Governor Jeb Bush for an incredible, great conversation this afternoon at Regent University. Congratulate them. Thank you all very much.
Well, that was fun. What did you think?
I thought it was a great interview, and it did feel more like a conversation, but
Well,
you asked all the right questions,
Yeah.
so good job.
I was very impressed with his knowledge of a broad range of issues. I mean, we went into detail in the tax policy. We went into detail in certain, in defense policy. We went into detail on these other issues. And of course, you know, we're familiar with them because we handle them all the time on the news, but the average person doesn't. And he was knowledgeable, had facts and figures, and it was most impressive. I think everybody there came away impressed.
Everybody did, and you know, I walked out of that building thinking, you know, he has what it takes.
Well,
You know,
remarkable. So anyhow,
Very presidential.
that's what Regent University does, ladies and gentlemen. It's a forum of political ideas and a high-level discourse, and I think that's what we had here.
Still more Palestinian terrorist attacks against Israelis over the weekend, with at least 6 stabbings and 1 firebomb. Also, an Israeli soldier was stabbed today. This as the Jewish state plans to install security cameras on the Temple Mount to try to calm tensions and stop the attacks. Chris Mitchell brings us the story.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says 24-hour surveillance on the Temple Mount will benefit Israel. He says it will disprove the claim that Israel is changing the status quo there and will show where the real provocations are coming from.
Israel will continue to enforce its long-standing policy. Muslims pray on the Temple Mount, non-Muslims visit the Temple Mount.
Israel says the wave of Palestinian terrorism and violence is due to incitement against Israel, particularly regarding the Temple Mount. Secretary of State John Kerry met with Netanyahu and then in Jordan with King Abdullah and Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas. He said the security cameras suggested by King Abdullah were an excellent idea.
This will provide comprehensive visibility and transparency, and that could really be a game changer in discouraging anybody from disturbing the sanctity of this holy site.
One Palestinian official said Israel would use the cameras as a trap to arrest Palestinians. The Temple Mount is the site of 2 biblical Jewish temples, the second of which was destroyed 2,000 years ago. The Golden Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque occupy the site now known to Muslims as the Haram al-Sharif. Since 1967, Israel has maintained overall security on the Temple Mount. The Jordanian Islamic authorities are responsible for the religious shrines. Netanyahu welcomed Jordan's involvement in solving the crisis.
Israel believes that those who visit or worship on the Temple Mount must be allowed to do so in peace, free from violence, from threats, from intimidation, and from provocations.
Some Israeli activists say banning Jewish prayer is discrimination. Many say the Temple Mount should be a place of prayer for all nations. Chris Mitchell, CBN News.
Thanks, Chris. A major earthquake rocked cities in Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and other parts of South Asia today. The 7.5 quake sent people rushing out of buildings and into the streets. The quake killed dozens of people, and the death toll is still rising. The tremors were felt for around 45 seconds in the capital of Kabul as houses shook, walls cracked, and cars rolled in the streets. Well, the strongest hurricane ever recorded made its way into Texas over the weekend. That, of course, was Hurricane Patricia, unleashing torrential rains and flooding. That was after it had already swept through Mexico. Now Operation Blessing is stepping in to offer aid in the storm's aftermath. Dale Hurd has the story.
Parts of Texas got up to 20 inches of rain. Emergency crews used boats and Humvees to reach some stranded residents, rescuing more than 70 south of Dallas. One man needed help when he waded in to find his submerged vehicle. Floodwaters even stopped this freight train. The 2 people on board swam to safety. In San Antonio, rescuers managed to reach a man who was swept more than a mile through a storm drain. Louisiana also saw flooding. But it was the Mexican coast where the huge storm made landfall. Giving a tour of her now destroyed home, Rosa Rodriguez said, "That was my living room. That was my bedroom. That's where my children slept." The Mexican government says as many as 3,500 homes were damaged, along with thousands of acres of farmland. Bridges were washed away and towns flooded. Operation Blessing sent teams from Mexico City to Guadalajara with chlorine generators to disinfect dirty water and tools to begin cleanup and recovery, clearing debris from homes. OB Mexico also deployed 2 mobile kitchens to provide hot meals for hurricane victims, serving at least 200 to 300 taco meals. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Pat, some of those images were just heartbreaking.
They are heartbreaking. That Patricia, it exceeded any hurricane that we've ever had on record. I mean, it was a monster thing, and fortunately, it didn't do any more damage than it did. But Guadalajara, for example, just devastated. And we have teams right now on the scene, as often happens. You know, we've got teams of dedicated people, disaster recovery teams all over the world, and the ones down there in the Baja were on the scene in Guadalajara and in Mexico. We've had chlorine generators. We're able to make clean water with our chlorine generators. It's very, very important. And we have 2 mobile kitchens to give hot meals to the people. We're down there to help them. We don't do it all, obviously we can't, but we're there in those emergency times when people are suffering the most. And, you know, when you really care about people, and we do, those that suffer, it doesn't matter whether it's Houston, Texas, or whether it's Guadalajara, Mexico, or it's in the Himalayas or in Kabul, Afghanistan, wherever there are disasters and wherever there's suffering, we want to be there to help them. So if you want to participate, you just call in. It's Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. And your help obviously is needed and very gratefully received here at CBN.